Hello everyone, in today's presentation, I will be showing you details of the brain and its functions. A lot of people don't know about certain parts of the brain and their correlation to how we as humans operate. But in this video, I will be talking about specifically the four main lobes, also some minor parts, and a brief description of what they do. But before I get into the four main lobes, I want to briefly talk about two specific associated areas that are located within the left hemisphere of the brain. One of these is called the Broca's area, which is located in the further frontal lobe near the motor cortex. The Broca's area controls speech production and language comprehension. It helps us understand language. For example, a native speaker can understand their native language and helps with formulating sentences. For example, if I go up to someone, I would say, "Hello, my name is, how are you?" Forming sentences in language is very important when communicating with other people. However, for people who have Broca's aphasia, it can be quite difficult to do that. Broca's aphasia is one type of aphasia, which is an injury/damage to the left side of the brain, commonly caused by stroke, head injury, a tumor, or dementia, that can cause affect of speech, making it more spontaneous and less grammatically structured. Essentially, they understand what people are trying to say to them, but their way of speaking can be more slowed down and broken than the average person. The second associated area I want to talk about is the Wernicke's area. This area is located in the temporal lobe next to the occipital lobe. The Wernicke's area is responsible for comprehending speech, for example, understanding the meaning of words. People with Wernicke's aphasia have a difficult time understanding speech, thus making their speech more nonsensical. Think of a word salad, though their speech is more quote unquote normal than someone who has Broca's aphasia. In most cases with Wernicke's aphasia, the victim of this can be very unaware of their condition, unlike someone who has Broca's aphasia. Now that we got the minor information out the way, let's get started with the four main lobes. First off, we're starting off with the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is mainly associated with movements, thoughts, and spoken language. The frontal lobe has a bunch of parts that relate to the whole front part of being a person, or the front part of the brain near. The left hemisphere is more of the analytical side, for example, language, speech, handwriting, calculation, sense of time, etc. And the right hemisphere is more of the creative side, for example, saying perception, imagination, spatial perception, recognition of patterns, faces, and emotions. Though it is a minor part of the frontal lobe, prefrontal cortex mainly connects with personality, controlling behavior, and decision making. A fun fact about the prefrontal cortex is that during the 20th century, if doctors were to conduct a lobotomy on a patient, they would usually use an ice pick-like tool and insert that instrument into the patient's eyelid, stabbing the prefrontal cortex. Which is why, when seeing cases of ice pick lobotomy patients, there is a clear difference between the before and after pictures, mainly showing the patients appearing much more joyous and happy. Before their lobotomy, they seemed much more gloomier and much more. They more showed emotion than 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 them than than after their lobotomy was performed, because puncturing the prefrontal cortex can cause a behavioral and personality change to a person. So it essentially changed who they were as a person, as a human being, and made them more, I guess, manageable, to say the least, to be quite frank. So that's why most of the time during like modern time medicine, performing a ice pick lobotomy would be considered a last resort. Even still, when performing a modern lobotomy, it doesn't require a ice pick through the eyelid. It's a bit more ethical now, I guess. The motor cortex, as the name suggests, controls movement of the body. It's very explanatory of what it does. It basically controls and helps us with how we move, how we grab things. Like, for example, when we start running, walking, doing hand movements, grabbing something, or we start dancing, stuff like that. It's pretty obvious on what the motor cortex does. It's very brief on with what they do. The second lobe is the prenatal lobe. This lobe contains the center of processing touch, pressure, temperature, and pain. Next to the prenatal lobe is the sensory cortex, which receives and processes sensory information from the entire body. So, for example, if you were to step on a Lego, your prenatal lobe would send signals to the sensory cortex, thus processing the information that yes, you did step on a Lego and it's not going to hurt. But how bad is it going to hurt? Very bad, actually. It's going to hurt very bad. Imagine stepping on a Lego. It's terrible. So it mainly has to do with like your pain, feeling certain temperatures, whether it be hot or cold temperatures, stuff like that, certain pressures, touching in general. Like, for example, if you were to touch something very soft, your prenatal lobe will make a signal, signaling that it's touching something soft. The occipital lobe is the third lobe. It contains the visual centers of the brain called aspects of sight, which means that they are the ones that control the vision of what we see and how we see it. For example, if you ever hit the back of your head and your vision has gone blurry, that correlates with the fact that you might have hit the occipital lobe, and yeah, you should probably see a doctor. Finally, the last main lobe is the temporal lobe, which is responsible for hearing and meaningful speech. It means that it controls the hearing aspect of us humans. And that is all. That I want to say thank you for bearing with me in this recording. I hope that this video was somewhat interesting and you learned something new. That is all for now, and I hope that I will see you wherever I see you. I hope you guys take care and have a nice day. Goodbye.